great. Well, welcome to the State of DevOps 2023, co-presented by Google, me at Opsera, and Vishnu at Opsera. We're really excited to have Nathen Harvey here, and in a minute I'll let him introduce himself. But what we're titling this program today is Unleash the Power of Your Software. And I chose that title a little bit cheekily because if anything, I believe we're actually unleashing the power of your people. Because I think people are really what contribute to the software that you're creating. And Nathen's gonna he's nodding his head because he's absolutely behind that. So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, Nathen, and then Vishnu and I will introduce ourselves.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anna. It's great to have, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, one way or the other. I'm excited to be here and talk to you today a little bit about the State of DevOps Report. So hi, everyone. My name is Nathen Harvey. I help lead up Dora within Google Cloud. What is Dora, you ask? Oh, don't worry. That's what we're here to talk about. So we'll get to that very soon. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are definitely excited to have you. So wonderful that you could join us. And then Vishnu, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Anna. Thanks, Nathen, for joining us for this webinar. And thank you, everyone, for joining across the globe. Good morning and good evening. I'm Vishnu Vasudevan. I head the product here with Opsera, and been working with Nathen on building the Dora, the core capabilities within the platform, and happy to go through the demo end of the webinar. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll stick around and excited to look at that. And then I'm Anna Doherty. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Opsera. I pretty recently joined, but so far I've had a really great time seeing all the capabilities and excitement building around our unified DevOps platform. So let's get started. Nathen sort of said, he gave a little bit of a teaser about what Dora is. But from our perspective, Opsera is a unified DevOps platform that empowers and enables developers and software engineers to deliver faster, safer, and smarter. That's really our whole thing. But Nathen, give us the elevator pitch.
Yeah, I think for Dora, it is an ongoing research program that's been around for nearly a decade now. It's kind of hard to believe. But the great thing about this ongoing research program is it's really research into how do teams and organizations get better at using technology to serve their customers, to serve their businesses, and really just to drive those real key outcomes that we really care about. And that's what Dora is all about. And using Dora, we like to say that with Dora, you can get better at getting better.
So it sounds like we're aligned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our principles are definitely the same.
Get better, getting better, and become awesome.
So much better that you're awesome. All right, great. So here we go. So we partnered for not only this webinar, but Opsera was a sponsor of the State of DevOps Report 2023. We're really, really happy to be a sponsor because we believe in the mission. And so much so that we wanted to offer you a link to view the report. So you can definitely view it here. Nathen's going to walk us through the report too. But if you need to reference it, we'll definitely send out the slides and a link to the report. You can also find it at opsera.io. But yeah, this is a great report. I highly, highly, highly recommend you check out the full findings. I've been following this thing for years. Like Nathen said, it's been around a long time. And I definitely recommend this as well as the Accelerate book from 2018. Oof. Man, any background info about when we might see an updated Accelerate book?
I mean, I would cheekily say what you should do is read each year's report. And frankly, one of the shortcomings of each year's report is we put a year on it. And why is that a shortcoming? Well, because people think, oh, the report from 2019, that was 2019. What does that got? What can I learn from that? The truth is, you can almost look at each one of the reports as chapters in an ongoing book that we are continually writing, where as a community, we're all learning and improving together.
Absolutely. Well said. And later in this webinar, we're going to talk about some of the differences between this year's report and last year's report. That sets us up really well. So here's our agenda. Here's what we're going to talk about today. So Nathen's going to walk us through the State of DevOps 2023. And then we're going to look a little bit into, how's that changed from this year, from last year? Because chances are some people on this call are familiar with last year's report, right? And so we want to know what's different. And then we're going to talk through some of the capabilities and culture changes that are necessary at your organizations in order to improve performance, as recommended by the report. And then we're going to do a little bit of synthesizing what we think next year's going to bring for us. And then we're going to leave some time at yes. And then at the end, we're going to leave some time for questions. So if you have any, go ahead and pop them in the chat. We've got Aditi on the call with us who's helping monitor the chat. Go ahead and leave us your questions anytime, and we'll, at the end of the webinar, answer them. And during the capabilities and culture changes, we're going to do a quick demo of our capabilities on the platform to help you with sort of monitoring performance and helping you improve at the organization. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Nathen, and he's going to walk us through this year's report.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. And I am going to just share my screen here. And of course, I want to thank you and Opsera together again for joining us as a partner in bringing this year's research to the community. And if you have not yet had a chance to get the report, I strongly recommend you head over to opsera.io and download the report from there. It's a really great resource for you. And you can see there's a lot of information right here on the page that's going to give you some good insights, not only about Dora, but also about what Opsera has to offer. But maybe I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself. I want to switch over here to this page, which is on dora.dev, and it really introduces you to Dora's research program. And I feel this is important just to make sure that we're all sort of on the same page here and that we've done some level setting. So what is Dora's research really about? As I mentioned earlier, it's about helping technology teams drive the right organizational performance. And so with Dora, one of the things that we're looking at are some key outcomes like organizational performance. Is your team, is your organization able to meet its profitability goals? Are you keeping your customers happy? Are they satisfied and coming back for more? And the truth is, when we do this research across organizations of every shape and size in every industry vertical. That includes things like 150-year-old banks, government agencies, the newest, latest, greatest technology startup that's maybe 3 months old. We're researching organizations of all different types. Now, organizational performance is important, but the other thing that's really important is us. How are we doing? The people, the employees. What's our well-being like? Are we able to reduce deployment pain and reduce rework and burnout? Dora really cares about the employees' well-being as one of our outcomes. Now, it is research that has to use some measures. So one of the most foundational questions of Dora's research is, how do you measure software delivery and operations performance? And when it comes to software delivery performance, we've identified and used these 4 key metrics essentially throughout the lifetime of this research program. These 4 key metrics help us answer 4 important questions. Those questions are, how long does it take for a code or configuration change to go from a developer's workstation all the way through to production? And how frequently are you updating your production environment? When you do, how frequently do those updates, maybe not go so well? We have to get humans involved to roll back that update or maybe push forward a hot fix. And when that happens, how long does it typically take? Using these 4 measures, we can measure technology delivery regardless of the type of technology you're delivering. This could be an application that's being built and run on a mainframe, on a mobile application. It could be the latest in AI and ML, like machine learning model. How are you updating that LLM? You can use these measures for any type of application that you're measuring. But once we understand how we're doing, the next question really is, how do we get better? Well, the truth is, we don't improve something like deployment frequency by just mashing the deployment button over and over again. That's not what's going to help us get there. Instead, what Dora looks at is a set of capabilities that predict better software delivery performance. Capabilities like technical capabilities, of course, things like code maintainability or version control. But we also look at things like process capabilities and, probably most important and most foundational, cultural capabilities. How's the culture in your organization? Through the research that we've done, the data we've collected, and the predictive models that we've built, we're able to show and predict how these capabilities drive software delivery performance. which in turn drives organizational performance and helps with employee well-being. That's Dora in a quick nutshell. But what did we learn in 2023? Well, I'm going to just jump over here to the 2023 page, again on Dora.dev. This is not the report, but this is a quick summary of the report. Remember, go over to Opsera.io to grab the latest and greatest full version of this year's report. So what did we learn in this year's report? Well, first and foremost, we found that the top performing teams, those teams that are able to get the best organizational outcomes and the best in software delivery, are balanced teams. They have high team performance, high organizational performance, higher job satisfaction, and importantly, lower burnout. How do they get there? Well, one of the ways that they get there is by focusing on the needs of the users. You know, we're technologists. And just like you, I love to play with all the latest and greatest new technology. And that's what keeps me motivated. But if I do so without thinking about who's actually using this service, why are they using it, what are they hoping to get out of it, I'm probably not getting the best results. In fact, what we found in this year's report was that those teams that are really focused on the needs of their users and taking user feedback to use it to shape the roadmap for what they're going to build next, those teams have a 40% higher organizational performance, and we can predict that that will lead to 20% higher job satisfaction. So that's pretty good. Remember who your users are and go build, run, deploy, operate applications and services that meet their needs and keep them happy. Beyond that, though, I want to share 5, maybe 6 key findings for you from this year's report. First and foremost, we'll start off with something that's top of mind for everyone: artificial intelligence. It's November of 2023. I'm sure you've heard of AI. The fact is, you're probably doing something with AI today. It might be an experiment, something new that you're trying, or it might be something significant that you're trying on your team. What did we find in our research? Well, this year, what we found in our snapshot of the industry is that AI is starting to take hold. We saw many teams doing something with artificial intelligence. And in fact, on those teams that are using AI, we see that it predicts better job satisfaction, less burnout, better well-being for the individuals on that team. But the truth is, we aren't yet in our data seeing any dramatic or real impacts on organizational performance or even software delivery performance. The impact of AI is just not yet flowing through. We suspect that it's just early. I mean, actually, you know, we closed our survey back in July. Here it is, November. The AI space has changed a lot. So perhaps your team is experiencing great dramatic gains through the use of AI. If so, keep it up and be sure to come back and participate in our survey next year so we can capture that data as well. Okay, moving on. Our second key finding: it doesn't matter what you do from a technology or a process capability perspective. If you don't have the right culture in place, you're simply not going to be able to succeed. You're not going to be able to hit those great outcomes that we talk about. Culture is so foundational, but you know, culture is also one of those things that's difficult to measure, difficult to even describe. What is the culture of a particular team? We have a bunch of different ways that we test for the culture within our survey, and maybe we'll get to some of those later, but I think here's an important thing to know. One of the ways that you change culture is you change the tools that you use. In fact, culture is, in many respects, a reflection of the tools that we use, the processes that we follow, the artifacts that we create. All of these come together to create culture. You can't really separate culture and tools. They go together, they feed off of and amplify one another. So if you need to change your culture, sometimes what that also means is you need to change out your tools. Speaking of tools and technical processes and capabilities, what about documentation? Boy, we looked at documentation for the 3rd year in 2023, and we found once again that documentation is, well, we like to say it's like sunshine. It really helps those technical capabilities grow within your organization. In fact, we saw that not only does documentation lead to the adoption and strength of better technical capabilities, but it helps them matter even more to your organization. Next up, key finding number 4, let's talk about flexible infrastructure. You know what flexible infrastructure is? It's infrastructure that, can have rapid elasticity. We can scale that infrastructure up. Oh, and we can scale it down very quickly. We can do so at the call of an API or maybe the click of a button. And through that flexible infrastructure, we give the developers on our teams easy self-service access to that infrastructure. Gone are the days where, as a developer, in order for me to get new infrastructure, I have to open up a ticket, wait for that ticket to process through a queue, get a response back on that ticket, find out that infrastructure was provisioned, but it was not the right infrastructure, back and forth, back and forth. No, that's not flexible infrastructure. We need that flexible infrastructure where I have some control over the infrastructure that I'm using. And what we found this year, it may be not super surprising, was that flexible infrastructure is enabled by using cloud services. That's not to say cloud is the only place you can have flexible infrastructure, but it is to say that how you use the cloud is probably more important than the fact that you are using the cloud. Top key finding number 5, distribute work fairly. Let's go back to that idea of culture and who is on our team and what work are they doing. Unfortunately, we continue to see that burnout is prevalent, across the industry, but burnout tends to impact some people in our community differently than it does others. Or maybe it's more prevalent in folks that identify as underrepresented in our communities. So how can we fight against that? How can we prevent that from happening? One of the ways that we think we can help with that is through even an equitable distribution of work. What work is each individual on your team being asked to do? Is the work that they're doing work that can help them get promoted, work that's helping drive our team's performance forward? These are key questions to start asking yourself. Speaking of questions, when it comes to those 4 metrics that we talked about, those are really a great place to start a conversation once you've understood how you're performing against those. Okay, I teased a 6th finding, so let me just share this with you. It's not on this page, but it is definitely in the report. Our 6th key finding this year was that teams with faster code reviews see 50% better software delivery performance. Now, I find this finding fascinating because I think it falls at the crux of all of these things. Artificial intelligence, culture, documentation, flexible infrastructure. How are we distributing work? All of these play a role in how code reviews happen on your team. But there's another thing that's really interesting about them. Let's think about your team's code review process. Does your code review process, is it already fast? Well, if it is, great. Maybe you can't do much with this finding. In fact, if your code reviews are already fast, don't feel like you need to get them to ludicrous speed. No, if code reviews are already fast, it's probably not a bottleneck in your system. So if we go back to that research, the whole idea around Dora is to understand, where do you fit when it comes to software delivery performance? Once you've identified that, find which capability or potentially capabilities might be holding you back. Where's your constraint? Go and improve that capability and then repeat the process. And this is why we like to say that Dora helps you get better at getting better. It is about a continuous improvement journey. For better or for worse, that journey is never done. Regardless of where we are, we can probably improve. So that's a quick overview of Dora and the 2023 report. I'm going to turn things right back to you, Anna.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. That was fascinating for me, even as a person who read the report a few times. I loved the highlights there of really putting the focus on people. And I'm particularly interested as a woman in tech, right? The underrepresented group experiencing burnout at higher, faster rates. And that to me speaks to my soul. So the next topic we wanted to bring up, and I'll share my screen again.
Before we go on to that question, Anna, there's a question for Nathen. The faster code reviews correlated with smaller, more frequent changes?
Oh, Dina, thank you so much for asking that question. One of the things that we found, and in fact, we put into this year's report, is that when you look at those 4 key metrics, one common way to improve across all 4 of them is through exactly what you're asking here in your question, smaller changes. If we can reduce the batch size of the changes that we're moving through our pipeline, not only can we get them through the pipeline faster, but they're also easier to reason about. So when it comes time for code reviews, boy, we can review those code changes much faster if there are a smaller number of changes that we're making. Now, that said, of course, you have to be careful because you can't tell how complex a change is simply by the number of lines of code that are impacted by that change. We've all seen very complex changes in our systems that only required one line of code to change, or maybe even one character of code to change, can sometimes have dramatic influence on the overall outcome of that change. But I do think you're onto something here, Dina. Smaller changes can move through the system easier. They're easier to reason about. And if they do cause an incident or something that's negative, they're easier to roll back. So I think that this idea of smaller batches is absolutely a great way to improve your outcomes.
Absolutely. Great call. Okay, awesome. The next topic we want to get to is what is different from last year's report. What should we be on the lookout for that has changed?
Yeah, I think that there are a couple of things that have changed. So first, each year we look at new topics. And so this year, one of the topics that we looked at, we've already covered it, was the user focus, that focus on the user. That's changed in that we've introduced that as a new topic or new capability this year. I think that there are some things that are tried and true. These are the 4 metrics. Oh, wait. We did change something about those 4 metrics this year. They maybe aren't as tried and true as always. Let me discuss how those have changed ever so slightly this year. So you can find more about this in the appendix of this year's report, but one of the things that we did was we changed how we asked about your change failure rate. So a change failure, what is that? That's when you push a code change into production and you listen and someone shouts out an expletive. Why did they shout out an expletive? Because, well, something went wrong and we need to get humans involved, roll that change back or push forward a hot fix. One of the things that we changed about that this year was how we asked or how we allowed participants to answer that question. So in years past, we bucketed answers. Change fail percent, as you might imagine, is a percentage. In previous years, you could answer something like 0 to 15%, 16 to 30%, 31 to 46%, etc. This year, instead of providing those predefined buckets, we allowed participants to answer in any whole percentage. So anything from 0% all the way through to 100%. And what we found was that the data is more statistically loading with the other 3 metrics. We have a little bit more precise answers there. And what that allows us to do is see the differences a little bit better. Now, the other thing that we changed about those 4 key metrics was how we asked about your time to restore service. In years past, we asked, how long does it typically take your team to recover from an incident or outage that might impact users? Which is a great question. It is definitely something that can help you start conversations. But this year, we got a little bit more precise in the way that we asked that question. And instead, we asked, how long does it take you to recover from a failed deployment that causes an incident or negatively impacts your customers? So what we've really done is kind of hone in on this particular class of failures. And in fact, we changed the name of that metric in this year's report from time to restore service to the failed deployment recovery time. It's much more focused on that process of software delivery. So those are a couple of things, or, well, I guess I gave you 3 things that have changed since last year's report.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, reading the report is really valuable, but being able to distill some of those changes is going to help, I think, a lot of teams understand some of the process changes, but not necessarily the outcomes are that much different. We still recommend those core 4. They're still incredibly important to your business. We just, little minute changes help make it more appropriate for the findings. So let's go to the next section here. And so we're going to we're going to transition away from the findings and to application of the findings. And so one of my favorite parts of the entire report is the capability section, because it kind of helps me understand, oh my goodness, what do I have to change at my business in order to actually experience some of these improvements in performance. And so we're going to highlight a couple of these because at Opsera, we also very specifically design our application around these capabilities. So it's hard to say, oh, at Opsera, we help you establish a healthy culture, but actually we do. And so one of the things we focus on for establishing a healthy culture that Nathen mentioned was self-service. If you can help your teams better onboard, right? Get on board as a developer and start creating value fast. That's one way to get someone off to a great start. If you can remove the barriers, you can prevent burnout, right? If you're able to understand when I hit code commit, I'm not standing and waiting, looking at my watch, waiting for somebody to review my code, waiting for somebody on the security team to say, oh, nope, can't get you through because this check mark, this check mark, or this check mark. That's, you want to talk about burnout, that's an easy way to get burnt out. So culture isn't just about, this person shakes this person's hand and everybody has a great time. Culture is also enabled through really secure, repeatable, healthy processes and technology that enable your teams to do better faster. So that's one of the things we really care about. The next one is build for users. So Nathen, that was one of the huge report findings, right? This is something that you need to care about at your organization. And at Opsera, we also agree very specifically that if you want to build well, you need to have the tools that you want to use and be able to build with them. So we have enabled our platform with more than 100 integrations across all of these different tool sets, because when you can build well, you can start thinking about other things. You can start thinking about the user. You aren't thinking about, oh my goodness, do I have to create glue code to make this tool work with this tool? You're thinking beyond that. You're thinking about users. You're thinking about value. You're thinking about what they need and not what you need to get your job done. And so that's a huge one for us. And then infrastructure flexibility. Again, another big report finding. When you have that flexibility, you can choose the cloud of choice, your tool of choice. When you have that flexibility, you're a higher performing team. So I wanted to show you sort of the problem we're experiencing in the market here. Does this look familiar to you as an organization, right? Do you have all of these tools that, yes, they're cloud enabled, right? They're cloud forward, but you are trying to piece them all together to create an experience that allows your developers, one, to do their jobs, and two, to get your value out to your customers. Imagine all the rigmarole you have to jump through to piece all these tools together to even reach the point in which you're deploying your application. And so all of this creates complexity, it creates instability, and it helps, with that burnout situation. Now add on top of that, microservices, multi-cloud architecture. You're trying to do scale at your business. So not only are you built on really difficult to manage infrastructure, but now you're trying to get it across all these different teams and organizations and microservices and across every cloud imaginable. It all becomes incredibly complex. And complexity does not lead to your teams being more innovative. It is a barrier. And so, it also is one of those things where if you are trying to keep this architecture together, you have to glue all these codes together, and you're adding more people to the problem. And those people aren't enabled to be innovative. Those people are maintaining code just to keep the ship going. And so that's a thing we want to remove a barrier for as well, to create a more flexible infrastructure that is secure, safe, sound, smart, and allows developers to do their jobs better. So I want to bring Vishnu on because we're about to talk through a capability that is incredibly important, which is, yes, these 4 core Dora metrics exist, but how in the heck are you supposed to measure them? And how the heck can you measure them across all of these tools that you are using? And so I wanted to bring him on, and he's going to do a little run through of the Opsera platform and through our Unified Insights. So go ahead, Vishnu.
Thank you, Anna. And before I jump on to Nathen, do you want to take that question from Neil?
Sure thing. So I'll just read it out loud for the benefit of the recording. So Neil asks, do you think platform engineering is an enabler for performance? Neil, I would say absolutely. I think that platform engineering is an enabler for performance. You've just seen Anna walk us through part of the problem. There are so many different tools out there. How does a platform come and help you resolve some of those issues? But the other thing I would say there is that, when we think about Dora, what does Dora tell us about platform engineering? I think that, a platform's role is to help developers become more productive. One of the ways that we can measure developer productivity is by looking at the outcome of those developers being productive, which looks an awful lot like those software delivery performance metrics. So is your platform enabling your developers to achieve those software delivery metrics? And then how do you build out your platform? Well, it's going to need to enable those technical capabilities that we look into. In fact, you might even say that the Dora report is meant for platform engineers. In the report itself, we actually talk about this idea of user focus and remind those platform engineering teams to stay focused on your users, just like every other software delivery team is focused on their users. The difference is maybe that your users are not customers, but coworkers when you're building out a platform engineering team. So I think platform engineering absolutely enables us to get to better software delivery performance when used the right way. Vishnu, back to you.
Thank you, Nathen. So if you look at the Opsera platform, right, like we started building this platform like a few years ago, like keeping the platform in the mind, rather like building like a focused feature capabilities on the DevOps side of it. Like with that, like what we did is like we segregated the platform into 3 areas. One is the toolchain automation, which is nothing but like you can basically bring in any choice of your tools for your DevOps ecosystem or DevSecOps ecosystem, starting from your Jira to production deployment tools. And then or you can choose the tools that we offer within the platform, and then like you can basically use it for your DevOps ecosystem. The next one is the no-code pipelines. Now you have the tool chain basically set up within the platform through Vault, so like completely encrypted. Now you can build no-code pipelines across any SaaS platform, any tools, any technologies. It can be Java-based application, it can be Salesforce, it can be Informatica, or it can be Boomi, or it can be like infrastructure as a code. You can build pipelines on demand at will without you basically worrying about like all of this, the complex pipeline logic that you build, right? Like in terms of the approval process or the notifications, or like having the SAST threshold, dynamic scan, container scan. All these things can be built like without you worrying about writing the glue code. You don't have to you don't have to know YAML, you don't have to know Groovy, and you can build drag and drop. The third one is Unified Insights. Now we have the toolchain automation, no-code pipelines. So if you look at toolchain automation, it's an investment that you're making on the tools based on your choice, based on your team's requirement. No-code pipelines is basically like bringing all these tools together. Now, how do you basically measure the performance? How do you basically measure the ROI? That's where the Unified Insights comes into the picture, where it can basically help you basically build KPIs across the entire DevSecOps ecosystem, starting from your planning to production deployment. And then like you can basically have the end-to-end logs, like what's happening within the pipeline, who is using the pipeline, and like what really happened, why is the failure coming in. With Hummingbird.ai that we have on our platform, it's going to basically help customers remediate the issue along with like providing the summary of the pipeline. Previously, if something goes wrong within the pipeline, you have to basically go search like a needle in the haystack. Now with the Hummingbird.ai, we give you the remediation exactly where you need to solve the problem and who needs to basically look into it. This way, this basically helps reduce the finger pointing that's happening across the ecosystem, because if you have like a huge team, like something goes wrong in the pipeline, there is always somebody has to reach out to someone to get the logs, understand, and by the time like you will have a downtime on your application, so many escalations coming in. With Opsera, you can minimize all these things by reducing the mean time to identify an issue. That's the core platform capabilities that we offer with respect to toolchain automation, no-code pipelines, and unified insights.
Awesome. I think it's a really good idea for us to get into the product and show it off, Vishnu. So how about we let you steer the ship for a few minutes? And while we're sharing the screen share here, go for it. I wanted to sort of bring it back to, how do you make the right decisions about how to improve your mean time to recovery, for instance, right? How do you actually know what to change in order to improve those metrics, right? If you have no visibility into your entire pipeline, if you don't have visibility across all your tools, you can theorize that you could make a change somewhere, but how can you actually improve things? So Vishnu is going to show us in the platform how we help identify some of those metrics and how we can start using those metrics to make actual changes.
Thank you, Anna. I hope you're able to see my screen. Okay.
Looks great.
So this is a landing page of Opsera. We basically offer unique way of on the DevOps capabilities. We offer platform in a dedicated cluster for each customer through secure VPN channel. That way, you're completely secured and entire platform is encrypted end to end. So you have these modules like toolchain automation, pipeline, and unified insights. These are 3 different modules and completely microservice based architecture. You can pick and choose the module. I'm not going to go deep into toolchain pipelines, but I'll basically jump into insights. So in order for you to get started with insights, all you have to do is go to the tool registry, pick the 4 tools that is required for you to measure the Dora capabilities to start with. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is bring your authentication information with respect to your Jira, your ServiceNow, or Jira if you're using for service management, your pipeline. That pipeline can be anything starting from Jenkins or GitLab or GitHub or Opsera or Bamboo, you name it, you can bring it. And the 4th one is your source code management tool. Again, it can be any source code management tool that can be on cloud or on-prem, and we'll be able to take care of it. And no need to worry about what API they're using in the backend. And once you connect it by clicking the new tool connection, and you are all set, and you can basically go into this pipeline view, so the insights view, and you'll be able to start seeing this KPIs getting populated. And within this KPIs, you have capabilities to apply the filters. So we have the intelligence to take care of the tags, the groups, applications, right? The tags can be an organization, or it can be under a leader, it can be a program, product, release, or a sprint, you name it. This gets populated, and all you have to do is apply the date range. And we give by default 6 months, but if you want to go beyond that, that's something we can add it to the capability as well, which is something you don't have to worry about. So if you look at here, I already have this Dora dashboard set up. One is the lead time for changes, cycle time for changes, deployment frequency, change failure rate, mean time to restore, and then system-driven maturity. So you might be wondering okay, I've seen only 4 KPIs in Dora. What are the other 2 KPIs? So the other 2 KPIs is cycle time changes. What we are doing is we are measuring your Jira lifecycle. From the time the product person creating a Jira story, how long it basically took for that story to go into production deployment. What are the different cycles it has to go through? The design, the coding, the testing time, the security time, whatever that is, we will be able to measure and exactly tell you where the ticket is spending more time. Then that's your basically the area where you need to focus and see how you can improve the process. And the last one is the system-driven maturity. I'll go in detail. So this is nothing but a combination of all 4 Dora KPIs, and we'll tell you exactly, okay, this particular application, they are doing elite in deployment frequency and MTTR, but they are basically on the low side, when it comes to the change failure rate and then the lead time for changes. Now, this gives an opportunity to just focus on these 2 areas rather focusing on the entire 4 areas, which I'll go in detail as well. With that, let me start with the lead time for changes. When I start with the lead time for changes, I'll be able to see how many deployments, right? How many deployments has happened, and what are the modified files, and what is the commit lead time. What does it mean? So you have 10 developers working on it in a sprint. The first developer taking the story, making a first commit, how long it took for that commit to go into production, and how many commits, what is the commit lead time, what are the modified files. And if you want to basically go look into the pipeline logs by clicking here, you can go to any pipeline, as I said, GitHub, GitLab, or Jenkins or Bamboo. No matter what, we'll be able to transform and give you the data to see what exactly happening and who are the total contributors in a given sprint that basically impacted that lead time for changes. And the next one is the cycle time for changes. Along with that, I forgot to mention here, you will be able to see what rank you are in, based on the industry standards, right? You have elite, high, medium, and low based on the Dora guidance. And again, as Nathen mentioned, we are basically giving the capability for you to adjust your own threshold. So for instance, 0 to 15% change failure rate is elite. And you want to say you want to basically keep it to 0 to 5%. You can adjust it, and anything above 5%, you can say you are at high, you are not in elite. So you can customize it, and you can basically move it based on your needs. This is going to be very handful. The reason is not everybody is going to deploy their application once in 2 weeks. The need of the application will be different from organization to organization. So you might be deploying once in 3 months. So we don't want to penalize that application team just because they're deploying once in 3 months. So you can set your own strategic goals, and you can measure and monitor how well you do when it comes to DevOps and Dora guidance. So this is the cycle time for changes I was talking about. So if you look at here, this is my Jira lifecycle. This is Opsera platform, Jiras. So you see it takes 2.5 days on an average on the design time. So there is no pickup time because there is some gap, because people are basically picking up into the coding time. That means either they are not using Sprint or they are basically going into the Kanban. So now this is an opportunity to see whether you want to stick with Kanban or Sprint. Now you have the coding time, you have the completion time. Between coding time and completion time, why is it taking 25 days? Is it because of huge testing cycle, or is it because of something goes around the security cycle or the change approval board? Now this gives an opportunity for the team to evaluate this particular point C to point D, rather you basically think from point A to point D. So that will basically help you mature the process much faster than you think using the data that we offer. Now, if I want to click here, I'll be able to give one more level, and I'll be able to compare you with the developers to their entire organization. So if you look at here, this person, Divesha, I'm comparing with the entire development group here. And if you see, Divesha is at a point, around July, August timeframe, she's been delivering 67 stories, but it has come down. Maybe she's on vacation. Maybe she's working on some R&D stories, and that might be impacting your deliveries. So how do you basically manage your capacity using this data? And what is your average team size? Now, tomorrow, your program is coming up with saying, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million. You have 3 months to deliver this particular capability. Now you have this average CTFC from your team. Now you can say, hey, my team can deliver only this percentage of story. Just because you give $1 million, I will not be able to deliver this capability in 3 months. In order for me to go to 24.6 to 35.6, I need 2 more resources. Now you make this mathematical decision using the data that we offer from the platform. Now here, you will see another data point, which is going to be very, very useful. For instance, look at this developer, Arun. He got 12 stories as part of the sprint cycle. He completed 9, 3 is not completed, but out of 9 he completed, 15 defects has been produced. The average completion time is 22 days, but to complete the defects alone, 15 defects, 11 days. Why is it 11 days? Now, this is a very, very critical data point, because you're going to go back and have this conversation during a sprint retrospective. Say, hey, product, you did not give this requirement exactly. That caused me confusion to basically build this feature in this way. It came back to me as a defect. It's a problem of our entire team, not just me. Now, basically, let's put a process. How do we basically define our stories? What is the definition of that? You can basically strategize this entire thing using this data. That way, you can reduce the friction, and you can also be a better performing team, when it comes to the, when you basically look at across the industry. The next one is the deployment frequency, right? How frequently you're deploying, right? You can basically go by the pipeline or the project name, and then what is the pipeline trigger time? What is the stop time? How long it took? Because you might be starting a pipeline Monday, but your deployment is Friday. And that pipeline might go through multiple steps. Each stakeholders might have to verify, approve it, and you'll be able to validate where exactly it is spending, what is the total deployment that has happened, total deployment failed, and average time to restore the deployment. This is a good point Nathen brought up as well, right? So when you have a change deployment failure, how long it is taking for you to restore the deployment, right? It might basically be taking you 12 hours, 24 hours, 34 hours. You cannot take that level of downtime. So if you are taking that level of downtime, now build a strategy to have a rollback, so that you can quickly roll back to a known state where you can bring the application to the steady state while you go back and fix the change deployment failure. and then like now understand where exactly it is failing and who can basically help you on those things, and you make a decision out of it. So moving on. So this is the resolve time I was talking about. So if you look at here, this particular Jira ticket or the ServiceNow ticket, it took 114 days. Why is it taking 114 days? Can we not reduce it to like 10 minutes, 30 minutes? We can basically set up a goal within the platform and say, okay, anytime my change failure rate is going down or going high, now let's come up with a strategy. How do you basically build this strategy? Now you put a goal here in Opsera saying that like, okay, change is failing, no worries, don't get panicked. Have a 30-minute goal to roll back to a known state, or have a forward fix to bring the application to a steady state. And if you're not able to meet it, now go understand the data by clicking this link, looking into the pipeline logs to see where exactly the problem is. Now come up with a plan to basically fix those gaps. Mean time to resolution. This is another data point, right? Like if you look at here, I got like 18 incidents, 16 resolved. Mean time to acknowledge is 1 hour. This incidents is caused based on the change, right? Like it's not an incident like without a change. It's purely based on the change. And like, what is the average time for you to resolve any issue or any incident? And if you look at here, 11 years, and it is assigned to this person, now you basically bring this person along with your dev team and the technology people are like wherever the problem is, and have a conversation, see how we can basically better resolve this incident next time when it comes by preparing a good knowledge database, and also preparing like a solid plan in terms of like something goes wrong in the change. How do you basically resolve those issues? The last one is the system-driven maturity, which I was talking about. This is basically like based on the 4 Dora KPIs that we have, and we basically tell exactly where you lag when it comes to your like applications or projects across your deployment frequency, change failure rate, MTTR, and then like lead time for changes. When you double click that, you'll be able to see exactly like, okay, on May 11 to July 1, my maturity score is 2 across this particular group of organizations applications. But in July 2 to September 1, they have improved to 3.67. They are at 3.5, 3.67. It's good. If you look at here, like now using this data, they have matured from May until November to 3.67. They are in high. If they want to go to elite, like above 4, they can continue to like build this model and see where they can enhance with respect to the 4 Dora KPIs. And then they can continue to monitor and measure and manage across the ecosystem using the insights. And this can be used not just for the SDLC like Java-based or like mean stack-based deployments, but this can be used for Salesforce-based deployments or Informatica-based deployments or your AI-based deployments like LLM model deployments. No matter what, as long as you have these 4 tools, we'll be able to measure, provide this maturity score, also help you like improve the process by providing some of the Hummingbird.ai capabilities as out of the box from Opsera platform. With that, I'll pause here. And if there is any questions, I'll take it from here.
No, I don't think so. I think people are like probably like, whoa, there's a lot of capabilities here with just bring your own 4 tools, and you can actually start to see changes and improvements and like you said, really pinpoint down into where are these problems coming from. Let's have conversations and bring people together to improve what some of those processes are. So I'm going to regain control here real quick, and we're gonna close things out. It's pretty close to the end here. We really wanted to thank you all. And if you enjoyed this, you're gonna enjoy our next webinar a lot. So we are really excited to be able to partner with Workday because Workday is one of our customers, and they were able to take their code and security review process from weeks to hours using Opsera. And like we talked about earlier, code reviews, right, can really be a bottleneck, and we're trying to remove bottlenecks. And so that's a huge culture and capabilities change. And so they're going to tell their story firsthand. It's not going to be us telling it. It's going to be them. And I think that's really exciting. So if you want to, we're going to send a link to register to that webinar. It's coming up on the 15th. So really close, November 15th. So that's pretty back to back with this one. But we're really, really excited to have them tell their story. And finally here, just going to leave you with that, a little snapshot about, what we bring to the table. Speed up your releases, really pinpoint your problems, get everything unified across all your 100 plus native integrations. it's kind of a no-brainer when you think of where do I start, to make real changes and improvements on my in my deployment process. So with that, I wanted to say, if you want to see it in action, you want a custom demo, definitely schedule a demo with us. Our team, you might see Vishnu on the call, actually. If you schedule a demo with us, you might make an appearance. But yeah, we're here for you if you want to see how we could help you plug and play and start to see some changes. So with that, if you have any more questions, let us know. We have about a couple minutes here to answer them. And if not, we had a great time. Oh, I think we do have actually one question that I think really encapsulates this whole entire discussion. And that's for everybody. And it is what's the first thing you need to do to get started? How do you get started? You can't boil the ocean, right? It's a huge change. So let's go around the room here. Nathen, if you were to take a team and tell them, how do you get started? What's your answer for that?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the best way to get started is to really first understand where you are. You can't tell where you're going if you don't know where you are. And how do you assess where you are? Well, certainly you can do that through conversations, cross-organization, cross-team collaborations and conversations can be a great way to get started. But when you have something like Opsera that pulls in data from all of those systems as well, complementing those conversations with data from the way things are actually working today can be very, very powerful.
Absolutely. Vishnu, how would you recommend people get started if they need to make a change?
So one thing I've seen in the industry based on my experience, right? Like the leaders come and say, hey, I need to be in elite state by next 6 months. Yeah. Just push back, say no bold, and say like, okay, this is where we are. And like, take a look at like where you are, build a baseline, and then like come up with a plan. Okay, this is where we are going to be, and improve area by area instead of like, as Hannah mentioned, don't boil the ocean, right? Area by area and see like where you can achieve in next 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. And then you'll be able to understand, okay, next 1 year, where you're going to be there. So unless you have the baseline and the first 45, 60 days numbers, you cannot basically like reach your goal, like what you want to achieve. Yeah, shooting for the stars is good, but like it's not going to be easy when it comes to the process, especially you have a lot of people involved.
So realism, be realistic, right? And use the data that you have to make good changes. And from my perspective, get started by the people who matter, right? Those are the people who are making these changes, the people who create value in your applications. Get to know them, right? If you are a platform engineer or you're a DevOps manager, or you're someone who has this mandate of having to make these changes, the change is going to come from your people. So make sure that they're not feeling burnt out. Make sure that they're feeling enabled. And if they're not, let's make a path to get you enabled. So thank you,
Anna,
everyone.
I'd like to follow up on that really quickly, if you don't
Please
mind.
do.
You said the people that matter. And I want to remind everyone, you are the people that matter. You are the people that matter. In fact, you have a responsibility to not just sit back and sort of rest in this helplessness. You have the power and the responsibility to help your teams and those around you improve. So the first step really is recognizing that and not settling for the status quo. We have to push forward.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and I didn't. Great job, Nathen. All right, Vishnu, Nathen, and Aditi, thank you so much for joining us on this. This was really fun, and I really look forward to being able to hear Workday tell their story about how they've improved their DevSecOps entire organization. So thank you again, and we will send out a recording and links to these slides afterwards. But until next time, thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great
Bye.
session. Thank you. Bye.